Hi, it's Mr. Camp here. Hope your day's going well. Last class, you'll remember that you did a little research over the empires of Mesopotamia. Um, Hopefully, today, the information I'm about to share with you, you can use this to go back and double check the chart that you completed on the empires of Mesopotamia uh, assignment on Canvas. And also, if you finished your report, hopefully you did, finished your report, you can go back and make corrections if there's anything you need to add to your report to enhance it. Um, so the four empires of Mesopotamia include the Akkadians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, and the Neo-Babylonians. So the first empire is the Akkadian Empire, and they ruled for not very long, only about 200 years, from 2300 to about 2100 BCE. So kind of a really long time ago, about 4,000 years ago or more that they were around and in power in Mesopotamia. Um, their leader was King Sargon. There you can see a picture of him, at least a statue of what he might have looked like. He's got a fantastic beard, but something happened to the sculpture and his eye got busted out for some reason. So wearing an amazing looking hat. So um, Sargon, as the military leader, was very successful in assembling a large army of men. He got a really large army of men. At the time, you'll remember that the Sumerians were small, independent city states, so they weren't very powerful. And Sargon, with this large army, taught his soldiers how to fight in tight formations. What I mean is fighting side by side and front to back with spears outstretched from shields that were in front of the soldiers. This made them a really powerful and strong military force. And eventually, and over time, they were able to conquer all the Sumerian city states and take power by force. So, their greatest accomplishment, we would probably say, was the fact that they became the first empire in the entire world. There was no other known empire as large or as powerful as the Akkadians at the time to exist that we know of, at least. There's some other innovations that made the Akkadians also very successful and why they're well known to this day. One thing is that they created their own language. They created a language that was put in place to replace the old language of the Sumerians. And they also created these 3D sculptures called stelas. If you look in the upper right hand corner, this is an example of what a stela looks like. Craftspeople would carve them out of stone. Um, this particular one in the upper right hand corner here is called the Victory Stela. And it shows the victory of one of Sargon's grandsons. Now, his name was Naram Sin. It's kind of hard to say. Naram Sin. And he's the guy who's at the close to the top of the mountain there, pictured very large. Kings oftentimes um, were depicted as being larger than a lot of the other people around them when they were put into paintings and sculptures like this one here. So that's Naram Sin, Sargon's grandson. After a victory against the enemies that he was taking on at the time, you see there he's climbing up the mountain, and a lot of his enemies are kind of under his foot, being crushed. Others are fleeing or dying or just begging Naram Sin for mercy. So after the Akkadians fell, the city-states of Sumer went back to being these independent uh, little cities once again. That is until around 1792, when a group of people called the Babylonians took power. Babylonians ruled for about 200 years, so once again, not a very long time in power. But they were led by a really powerful king. His name just so happened to be Hammurabi. You can see a picture of him, or at least a statue of what he looked like. I don't know what happened to his nose there, but you can see once again another really cool looking hat. Um, Hammurabi was in power for about 40 years, and he is most well known for creating his 282 code of laws, 282 laws, which he used to unify the empire and preserve order. And these were all written on a single stela and placed in the temple for everyone in the empire to be able to see. So there was really no excuse for not knowing what the laws were because they were posted for everybody. And the laws that he created covered everything. They were applied to many, many different situations that could occur. Um, they were very strict. A lot of people would say that they were very harsh. And typically, the punishments for committing a crime matched the crime that was committed. It was an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, is the expression that was very often used to describe it. Now, the Babylonians did other things as well. They created the first postal service, a way of getting messages from one place to another. And they also gave rights to women, which was kind of unusual at the time. Women had the right to own property, they could keep money that they earned. Slaves also had rights, which was very unusual. Slaves were given the opportunity to earn money as well, and they could own property. And if they earned enough money, they could actually buy their freedom out of slavery. After the Babylonians fell, there was no single ruler who held power in Mesopotamia for very long. That is, until around 900 BCE, when the Assyrians took power. The Assyrians were very cruel and harsh warlike people. They were really known for their military power. One of their greatest leaders, interestingly enough, was a guy named Ashurbanipal. Um, Now, he wasn't really known for being a warrior or a general of the military, but he was well known for creating one of the first libraries the world had ever seen. But one of the greatest accomplishments of the Assyrians, the fact that they created some new weapons and war strategies that helped them conquer the land of Mesopotamia. One thing they did was perfect the use of new weapons, such as using iron weapons in battle and riding on horses. And this was something that helped them to win over a lot of the land. They also took part in something called siege warfare, where they would wait outside their enemies' walls and attack it over and over until eventually they were able to get in and take power. Um, some of the things that they used were a battering ram, where they would just pound on the gates of the cities that they were going up against. They would also have this tall tower on wheels that they would roll up to the city walls, and soldiers would be on top, and they would climb over, jump onto the walls and into the city, and cause havoc. Now, the Assyrians are also known for some of their innovations as well. They created a system of aqueducts that carried drinking water to cities that were up to 30 miles away. And they also created bas reliefs. Now, a bas relief is a two-dimensional sculpture that were created by craftspeople. They were oftentimes placed on palace walls depicting kings and battles. They were said to be like very, very realistic looking. The last of the great Mesopotamian empires was the Neo Babylonian Empire. They were also known as the Chaldeans. Same Babylonians as before, except many, many years later, they kind of rose up and gained power again. Ended up ruling for not very long, only about 60 years did they really hold power in Mesopotamia. But they made those 60 years count. And one of their greatest leaders was called Nebuchadnezzar II. It's kind of a fun name to say, Nebuchadnezzar II. Um, he is known for having conquered Canaan. At the time, the Hebrews rebelled against them, and he put that rebellion down, taking many of the Hebrews as slaves back to the city-state of Babylon, which eventually Babylon became the capital of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. He also wanted to protect that city as well. So he's known for creating an inner or building an inner and outer wall to protect it from attacks by enemies. Another one of the great achievements of the Neo Babylonian Empire, we might call it an innovation, was the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. This was one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. Here they had lush gardens and greenery vegetation placed on rooftops. It was said to be very beautiful, and they even had a watering system so that they could make sure that the gardens on the rooftops had plenty of water so that it would live year round. Neo Babylonians were also known for being amongst the first to use a sundial, a way of telling time based on the sun. This led them to innovations like creating the 60-minute hour and the 7-day week. Eventually, the Neo Babylonians were defeated and conquered by a group of people called the Persians, the Persian Empire. Thanks for watching my presentation. And don't forget to go back and complete or add to your Empires of Mesopotamian chart. And if you need to add anything to your Mesopotamian Empires report, please make sure you do that as well. Have a great day. See you later.